Oh, this is great. This is going to be awesome. All right. Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. Probably the most famous revelation that even LDS people know is the 1984 revelation that gave women the priesthood in the community of Christ. Dr. Mark Scherer is the former church historian for the Community of Christ, and he'll talk about both his memories of that momentous occasion, as well as talk about it from a historical point of view. We'll also share an interesting story between David O. McKay and Israel Smith that I think you will love. It's a great story. We'll also talk about the thawing of relations between LDS and RLDS church historians. So you won't want to miss this conversation. Check it out.
In the back of my third volume, there is an appendix that was not thrown out, and I identify the dates and where all the conferences.
Oh, that's
held.
Cool.
And you can see.
I know. I'm going to have to get this. So I don't know. I'm a nerd. I'm interested in RLDS history.
I had a tendency to personify these volumes. That sounds strange, I know. But each one of these, I lived with them for so long. Each one of these became my children.
Oh yeah.
And they all three have their own separate personalities. They all three had their pleasant times and their difficulties. I had to nurture and raise them all.
How long did it take for each volume to write, would you say?
I started researching and writing volume 1 about 2001.
Okay.
And had it finished by, it was the publication. It was 2008.
Okay, so 7 years.
But then they decided not to publish it.
Oh no!
Yeah. After all that, I mean, these books were on the shelves.
Why did they want to publish it?
That's difficult to say.
You don't know?
That's difficult to say. They wanted, the explanation I received was they said, well, we don't want to leave people with this. This is only part of the story. Let's have the second volume.
Oh.
And so they published both at the same time.
Oh, wow. So you started the second volume in 2007?
I had to make a decision. Do I run the risk of writing another book
and not publishing it?
And it was a tough decision. Did I feel that somebody was pulling my leg, or do I go in faith believing? And I considered, I took to heart the sincerity of the decision makers, and went ahead and marched toward this one.
It looks like each book gets bigger, more pages. Is that right?
Yeah, that was a problem. Well, this was only covering what, 24 years,
right,
like that. This was covering a century,
right? And
this one only covered from 46 to 2015. So it's not a century, but it has a very large
appendix,
including timelines and who's and an extensive index and so on. And the timeline here also covers first and second volume. So this really is the capstone, which is why I had an important decision maker. When they saw the project, they said, "Oh, our people will never read a book more than 300 pages." Well, this was about twice that long. I didn't take her advice, needless to say. I'm going to tell the story as completely as I possibly could, and page numbers I didn't care about.
Right. So the first volume, 2001 to 2007. The second volume, 2007 to 2013.
About 13. And then this one was about 215. It says 215, but I kept writing.
That was a lot of writing, a lot of fast writing.
Yeah, it was. But the neat thing about this child was that I lived through a lot of this.
Right.
Whereas I lived through some of this.
Okay.
No, I didn't live through any of this. I wasn't old enough, but I lived through a lot of this.
Right.
And so this was easier, which was problematic, Rick, very problematic, because I had to be very careful about not writing the story as Mark Scherer saw it actually happen, because I had such a limited view. I mean, one person, I sat, for example, in 1984, was not a delegate. I sat up in the, where those trumpets are up there?
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
Okay,
yeah.
I was ordained in the first quorum of 70 in 1982.
Okay.
I was in the first quorum. I was an officer.
How many quorums of 70 do you have?
Oh, gosh.
A bunch?
I mean, there are 15. So
oh, wow, that's a lot.
Maybe not that many. But there were only 7 quorums when I was ordained.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I was sitting there listening to the debate going on women in priesthood. Sitting next to me was another 70. He and I were very close friends. We had a lot of ministry together. And he leaned over and whispered to me, he says, "You know what happens if this doesn't pass?" I'm talking about 156.
Right.
He said, "President Smith will resign out of a no confidence vote. And if he resigns, then the first presidency is dissolved." Okay.
I thought you didn't dissolve your first presidency.
Well, the prophet the prophet will choose his counselors. Okay. They would resign in protest as well. Well, if they resign, you got to know that the second presidency will resign as well.
I thought that Wallace B was against women's ordination.
No. He was the one who brought the revel. It was W. Wallace who was against it.
Oh, I got him mixed up. Okay.
W. Wallace is the one who whispered into the hot mic.
Oh.
At one of the world conferences when it was raised. He said, he had just dismissed, people were going to lunch or something like that. And he leaned over to Morris Draper, who was a counselor. He says, "There'll never be women in the priesthood so long as I'm around." So something into those words. People turned around and saw that, it was a real telling moment, needless to say. But anyway, Wallace B is the one who brought the revelation.
And so he was for it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sitting there, and all these, if the first presidency resigns, okay, and of course we know that the Council of 12 is the second presidency, right?
Right.
Well, guess who's the third presidency?
The 70.
The 70.
Right.
So there we are, the first quorum. What? We're all going to sit on the rostrum and run the World Conference as 70? I mean, it was just kind of a stark moment at the time that it came to reality. But people voted handily in favor of women in the priesthood. And in November 15th of 1985, the very first woman was ordained. People have been district presidents and mission center district presidents and pastors and so on had been submitting women for priesthood for years. And the only reason they said no was not because of their qualifications, not because their ministry wouldn't be accepted. It was because they were women.
Right.
And that was just not going to fly. And in the current milieu of the times, women's liberation, the community of Christ has vocal women. Is that a way? They're not hesitant to share their viewpoints, particularly on the conference floor. And I've got a wonderful photograph of a woman whose name is Barbara Howard, who is and she is there in the conference, on the conference floor, there's the ordination of, anyway, she's the one, she's one of the many who spoke on behalf of the ordination. And thank goodness, because we've been so blessed. And I'm sincere about this. Trust me, I'm very sincere about this. The blessings that women's ministries has had to the community of Christ have enlivened, has energized, they've been lifeblood to be able. I've had opportunities to minister standing next to Mariva is a wonderful selection for Council 12 president. I've had the opportunity.
Was she just ordained this?
Yeah, just now. I've been in Tahiti, and Tahiti has got 1,200 islands.
Wow. Some
of those islands are all Community of Christ. They're small.
The entire island is
is Community of Christ membership. Unless there might be some who just don't have any affiliation, but Tikihau is one of those islands, and we got an airplane flying out of Papeete to this little island, and we went around. We're only in like a 4-engine prop plane,
right?
And I could look down and see this little bitty airstrip. It was an atoll. You don't understand what an atoll is. It's not even an island. It's just a bunch of sand and shells and so on. And he goes, boom. And we stopped within maybe 20 yards of the ocean, And but I had a wonderful weekend retreat there. And it was like 4 or 5 days, I guess. And Mariva was there. She did the translation because these people spoke Tahitian.
Oh, Tahitian.
Tahitian. Either Tahitian or French.
Yeah.
And I can remember in this class, it was mostly Tahitian that she spoke. And that was a powerful, this is one of those life-aligning experiences that form who Mark Scherer is. I was saying that sincerely because I could have stayed in the Independence Public School classroom, no problem. I was doing exactly what I wanted to do, teaching exactly the subject. I was teaching over at UMKC, doing exactly. I had my PhD. I was no problem at all. And then I got the phone call, and life changes.
Wow, that's cool.
Life changes. It really does, and it made all the difference in the world to me. I mean, I was a self-sustaining 70, and but to the institution really provided opportunities, untold opportunities to around the world a couple of times and be in places where I could only study. Fascinating. It's all in here. Fascinating individuals.
I want to read the chapter on 1984.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. This chapter is Right Arm to the Square.
Oh.
You love that one.
Okay, that's chapter 3.
Because
David O. McKay. What's this?
Yeah, David O. McKay. Who was it that died and David O. McKay took his place?
George Albert Smith.
Yes, that's right. George Albert Smith. Well, Israel Smith, Israel prophet president, was going to Salt Lake City to the district, and he was on his way when George Albert died.
Okay.
Well, David O. McKay and Israel knew each other quite well, as a matter of fact. And David O. McKay decided that here is the president of the council, here is an apostle plus the president of their organization coming to Salt Lake City at the same time that I'm going to be set apart as president of the church. So he invited Israel Smith to come and sit in the conference. It was in the, what's the
Tabernacle.
Tabernacle, yeah, down front. So here with the brethren comes the reorganized church president and a member of the Council of 12. Okay, so they sit, and there's proceedings going on, and so the next day they come back, and this time David O. McKay wants Israel to sit up on the rostrum.
Really?
Yeah. And when it comes time to vote, right arm to the square, right?
Mm-hmm.
You vote this way.
Right.
When it came time, they asked, if you were willing to sustain David O. McKay as church president, please raise your hand. Well, of course, everybody raised their hand. Well, sure enough, here comes the hand of Israel Smith.
Oh, no way.
And Israel Smith then votes to sustain David O. McKay as president of the church.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so in the audience are RLDS church members, just kind of sprinkled around the back, right?
Okay.
It is a firestorm.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness. It dominates the airwaves. It letters come flooding in, complaints. Is it really true? It's worldwide. Even from the Amsterdam, Netherlands, letters come in asking, is it possible? No, surely it's not. Surely you didn't do that. Well, he did do it. And it was David O. McKay eventually who had to make a public statement explaining everything. And that helped to calm the waters. So David O. McKay came to Israel Smith's rescue in that regard. And it's something that I'm sure Israel Smith went to his dying days with much gratitude towards David O. McKay.
Wow. So he just was like,
it was just a gesture. It was just a gesture of recognition, appreciation, kind of like this photograph is what friends would do.
You need to show that photograph to our camera.
Oh, this photograph?
Yeah.
How do I do this?
Yep, that's good.
This is one of my prized possessions. This is at the rededication of the Ogden, Utah temple.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Salt Lake at the time. My very close and dear friend, Elder Stephen Snow, invited me to visit the temple. So together we rode in the car, and
he's on the left.
Oh, sorry. Yes, this is Stephen Snow,
a former guest here on Gospel Tangents as well.
It's Elder Snow.
Yes,
and over here is Elder Marlon Jensen.
He's in the middle.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. He's in the middle.
He's the short guy.
Short guy. Stephen Snow's taller than me, I might add. Okay. Marlon Jensen was the church historian for the LDS church when I came in with my responsibility. Delightful man. He was replaced by Elder Stephen Snow, and Elder Snow and I became very, very close friends. And if you're watching Elder Snow, I'll never forget you for sneaking that putt and just denying me the opportunity. Okay. Anyway. Okay. So this is when Elder Snow and I were walking out of the temple, we saw Elder Jensen and his wife, and I made a beeline over and got a nice hug. And Sister Snow is the one who took this photograph.
Oh, nice.
And I framed this, put the plate on it, the brass plate, and sent it to both of them. And I hope that they revere it as much as I do.
Well, I've met both of them. They're incredibly nice. I just talked to Elder Snow. He spoke at the we had a conference on the Mountain Meadows Massacre, Juanita Brooks conference at Utah Tech, and that was a month ago, I think. And so, yeah, and I got to talk to him, and he's Elder Jensen. I don't think he remembers me, but I've met him too, and he's just, both of those men are just super nice.
It is an honor to be able to call them my friends. I say that sincerely. I really do. I wish them the very, very best, and prosper and so on.
Yeah, that's cool. I love how the relationship between our two churches have thawed. Can you talk about that? Because I know it seems like, I want to say, Fred M. and Joseph F., it was pretty contentious, really contentious. And even before that, I think with the whole polygamy, Joseph practiced it. No, he didn't. I mean, probably, would you agree that it wasn't until, say, the 1960s where there really began to be a thaw, at least among the historical community?
I would say, it probably would, yes, about probably the mid 60s to late 60s. There was one scenario, when I became church historian, I had an opportunity to go to look at view notes and so on. And there was one time where one of your scholars was a biblical scholar and was wanting to look at one of our historical Bibles. We have the Bible that Joseph Smith Jr. used to generate make the changes to the King James Version.
Joseph Smith translation, or inspired version, as you would call it.
Or we don't like to call it the inspired version.
Oh, you don't?
No.
I thought so.
No, not really. It's the Joseph Smith Biblical Revision.
Oh,
yeah. Now that's only at the collegiate level that people know. The vast majority knows that it's not really that inspired, frankly, knowing how much was actually changed and what was changed and so on. But anyway, I found a letter that somebody was coming out from Salt Lake asking to be able to see the Bible, because you could see where he and Sidney Rigdon had made little annotations, and he was writing a book and wanted to see the actual, and understandably so, as it's what a scholar would do. Oh, sure was the response. Come out, and we'll make it available to you during a certain period of time. And the guy showed up. Our people never showed up. And my guess is because he was a Mormon, and they were afraid about what he was going to write, and he didn't have the authority to write anything anyway.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's bad relationships.
When was this?
Oh, this would have been, I can't remember the date. It was undated. So I'll speculate that it was probably in the 50s, 19.
Oh, really? Yeah. So it was still pretty rocky then.
Yeah. It wasn't until mid 60s, maybe late 60s, under the leadership of historian Richard Howard, and John Whitmer Historical Association,
right,
was initiated to find an appreciation for the scholarship that LDS Mormon historians were doing, alongside RLDS historians were doing, and they found that they had a camaraderie.
Leonard Arrington was probably a big player.
It was right there. You bet. Absolutely. Leonard Arrington was there. He and Richard Howard were very close friends. And look at Arrington's career and know how he was treated. And you had to feel, I met him at Snowbird.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mormon History Association.
Didn't know me from a man on the moon, and probably, I was a nobody. I was an unknown quantity, let's put it that way. at that time and understand
This is about in the year 2000 or so?
No. That was much earlier. I entered the office in September of '94. Richard Howard retired in October. I had a chance to stay with him for a month, and then he left. And then after that, I became by myself. And it was
As church historian?
Yeah. And I had, of course, an archivist, Ron Romig, who was
I know Ron.
very, very helpful.
Yeah, Ron's great.
He helped me more than would. And then Barbara Bernauer was the assistant archivist.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to understand how successful the research was on these books,
Mm-hmm.
Barbara Bernauer.
Okay.
Yeah, she was the one that daily I would ask for. Says, what do we have on this, or what do we have on that? And she would sometimes email me, say, hey, look, I just found a letter, like factoring to volume 3. And so I'd run down the archives and make a copy of it and bring it back. And the product of that research is this. So my tribute is to Ron Romig, is to Barbara Bernauer. We were a team in a very real sense of the word. And I will always appreciate that. And I lend tribute, just clearly tribute to them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think I could talk to you for days, but I don't want to take up your whole night.
This has been fun. It really has. I pity the poor viewer.
I'll break it up into a few pieces, but yeah. So I know we've been going about 3 hours, so I really need to stop.
I'm good. You do whatever.
But I think I'm going to have you back because I'm not done asking questions.
I'm happy to accommodate. I just feel fortunate that the podcast capability ensures that insights will continue, even beyond just the printed word. Yeah. To be able to hear and see the spoken word is just irreplaceable.
I'm not sure that we've actually said, I think you've showed it, but the title of your 3 volumes are The Journey of a People.
Yes, Journey of the People.
The first one has the Kirtland Temple. The second one has
the auditorium.
Again,
it's my material culture.
Oh, there you go.
Architecture.
And then the third one has the beautiful
aerial view. It's a drone.
Yeah.
They flew the drone up
for the Community of Christ Temple.
For the Community of Christ Temple, and then took a shot downward. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it because it has a world there and also shows the Nautilus shell shape.
Right.
They took dozens of photographs, but this is the one that I wanted.
Yeah.
This is the world class. I
don't have a copy yet. I'm going to get a copy though. I'm going to, next time we're together, I'm going to get them autographed.
Okay. I tell you what, Rick, and if you buy today, I'll give you a pocket fisherman and a pole peel, not pocket fisherman, and a Ginsu knife. How's that?
And so those are on Amazon. Can you get them anywhere else? I guess.
I don't think you can get them on Amazon, but you can get them through Herald House. One person got a copy of this, one of the earliest copies. And put it on Amazon to see if he could sell it. And he was asking something like $5,000 or something like that. I mean, it's just, or you can get it for the Herald House for $34.95. Or
well, the problem is my luggage is already too heavy. Should I can I buy them and have them shipped?
Absolutely. That's how most of them are. They'll put them in a box and send them to you. Okay. That's how most of them are sold. People buy them.
I have 150 pounds worth of gear.
I can only imagine that Southwest Airlines is frowning, I suppose.
I know. And I'm like, I got to be really careful because you can only have 50 pounds in the bag, and mine's like 49 and 48, right on the edge. And then I've got 2 really heavy backpacks. But Yeah, Mark, this has been just such a treat. I know I could pick your brain for days.
That's right. Sometimes I feel it's already been picked and not much left. Slim pickings, how's that?
Well, this is great, and I would be curious. Maybe I'll have to get you a copy of Saints, especially because I think I would love to compare your volume 1 versus our volume 1, because I think the time periods are very similar.
I would imagine.
I will tell you, strangely, Saints volume 1 starts with a volcano eruption in the Philippines.
No, it's not Krakatoa. It's yes, it's what caused the
Mount Pinatubo, I think. Is that what it is?
Was it?
Mount Pinatubo?
Yes, but that's part of an island chain in Indonesia,
Yeah.
and it changes the climate and forces the Smiths out of New England, and that's the rationale for Joseph Smith Sr. to go south out of New England. Because he's up in the New Hampshire.
You have that in your book too?
Oh, it's in here, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he has to find work somewhere.
Right.
Well, the only place for finding work is on the canal.
Right.
And so he follows several people to this place called Palmyra. It's on the Erie Canal. I mean, it's Palmyra, and
It's a good biblical name, no?
I'm sorry?
It's a good biblical name.
That's right. That's right. It is. And he finds that, hey, I've got work here. Come on, family. And so they all leave
Vermont to go to
Vermont and come to Palmyra. And that's how Palmyra, the church is, that's where the Smiths settle.
Huh.
And it's all climate driven. If he's writing a book about climate and the impact of climate on the church story, it's very, very impressive. That's very forward thinking. I would be interested to get that because I'm concerned about our climate and know how it can. In this case, it happened to be for a good cause, but unfortunately, it's not always a.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm looking forward to reading that, except for my reading list is already much too long. But and then since you spoke of climate change, I spoke with Susan Score.
Oh, wonderful!
She is a former apostle in your church.
Yeah,
and she was part of the resolution on climate change.
Yes.
She must have done a good job because there was little debate on that one.
Well, that's good. No, talk about a brilliant woman.
Yeah.
It's no surprise at all that she grasped the audience. She can do that.
Yeah. I was hoping to get her, but she said I might have to do a Zoom interview with her. So we'll see.
She's just a wonderful friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, I don't want to keep you up all night, but thank you so much for being here on Gospel Tangents.
Well, happy to help out, and hopefully some of this makes a contribution somewhere. I just hope people understand that we're all in this together. We're all human beings. All religion is human driven in search of the divine, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, my mission is to facilitate and assist those who are in that search, in that journey. That journey. So,
all right. Well, thank you, Mark Scherer, for being here on Gospel Tangents.
My pleasure, Rick.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Mm-hmm. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Mark Scherer. Mark, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I think I could have talked to you for another 3 hours, so we'll have to do that again. So I would also encourage you guys to check out his books on the history of a people, the community of Christ, 3-volume set. So it's fantastic. You won't want to miss it. In our next conversation, I'm excited to have Barbara Jones Brown and Richard Turley on. They're here to talk about the newest book, Vengeance is Mine.
And so all of a sudden, we realized people have been relying on this source for generations, and we can't anymore. It is not a primary source. It is a forgery.
Do you have anything to add?
Well, there's some of the content that's just on its face a bald-faced lie if you know the facts. For example, Mormonism Unveiled asserts that Brigham Young collected all of John D. Lee's journals and had them destroyed. And that, of course, would stop anyone from looking for the journals and seeing if, in fact, the lawyer transcribed things correctly. Well, he put that in there because he didn't want anybody looking for the truth. How do we know that that's
for the journals?
How do we know that's wrong? Because we have correspondence from John D. Lee that it's at the Huntington Library in which he's talking with his lawyer, and the lawyer says, "Give me the journals." And then he writes to his family and says, "Collect all the journals and give them to this man."
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, you can hear the audio only at patreon.com/gospeltangents. For just $5 a month, you can hear the entire interview with no interruptions. If you want to watch the entire video for just $8 a month, you can also sign up at Patreon or on youtube.com/gospeltangents and just subscribe here. You can watch the entire video uncut before everybody else. Also, if you'd like to continue to support Gospel Tangents, you can either sign up for our $10 or $20 memberships, or you can get some cool gear like this hat. I've got the coffee mugs like this here. We've got sweatshirts and t-shirts, and I'm even thinking about ties. Somebody said they wanted a tie, so I'll see if I can get that on my store. So go to gospeltangents.com store, and you can get some Gospel Tangents gear. So you don't want to miss that. So anyway, thanks for listening. If you'd like to check out some of our other videos, check out here.